Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hey everybody, this is the Digital Asset Investor, and I forgot to remind you all, a couple of days ago I said that that I had an announcement I was going to make with Mr. B and Brad Combs. It was put off just for a little bit, but we are planning to do, and this is, I think that we were going to do a live stream on Friday and announce it, but I've got to talk to those guys to make sure that that's what we're going to do, but we're going to have an announcement. I was just texting with those guys, and it reminded me that I needed to talk to you about that. So, but we will announce that when it's going to be on Twitter and on our channels as well. I want to show you this tweet here from Alex Cobb. It says, this is a good tweet. Every once in a while, I like to be reminded of some of these things. And by the way, if you don't follow Alex Cobb, he's one of the OGs. He's one of the first, I think he may be the first person to do a YouTube channel in the XRP community. And so he and Jungle Inc. were my inspirations for starting my channel. So give him a follow here on Twitter, but also a definite subscribe on YouTube. He does I think he does one live stream a day. But he says, we're officially 700 days into the bear market. Last one for XRP was 860 days, then followed by 77,000% impulse. Now, this is crazy, but it's true. This really did happen. And the thing is, he's right about, there have been 2 or 3 at least bear markets for XRP where it just didn't do anything, and even people like myself walked away and thought maybe they had been wrong about things. Well, now that I've got a little more experience in this, I know that I'm not wrong, and so it's not as hard for me to stick around, but it's good to be reminded of these kind of things. Okay, Mr. B, he had the gall to disagree with me in his video. What he disagreed with me about, he was kind of kidding with me, giving me a hard time, which I totally love to get a hard time. He did a video. Now, Mr. B, by the way, has just started doing videos, and you can go and follow him. Here's his YouTube channel, the actual video. He's getting on up there. You need to get him. We're trying to get him more subscribers. Mr. B XRP, you can give him a subscribe and click this bell so you can be notified when he puts new videos out. I've gotten to know Mr. B. He's a smart guy, and he's worthy of your subscribe. And he's been in this space long enough to know what's going on. But he was joking around in his video. I had made a comment not to buy a yacht because that's not what you spend your money on. And Mr. B, who lives in Florida, apparently is a boatman, and he took issue with that. He was just kidding, but he was making the point that people down in Florida, they like to get boats, and it's you can have that. It's kind of be like a houseboat. And so, but what I was referring to, and understand, we're giving each other a hard time. In fact, I've told Mr. B and I've told Brad Combs, if you guys aren't giving me a hard time, you're probably not that good of a friend, because friends rib each other all the time like that. That's kind of part of being friends with people. So I like it when people are giving me a hard time, and I like to give hard times too. But I asked him here if I can rent a room on his yacht, because since I don't live on the ocean, I might think totally different about that if I lived near the water like he does. But more importantly, I wanted to make the point. Now, just because I said that I don't plan to buy a yacht, does not mean that you shouldn't buy. I think everybody should, when this thing finally goes off, I think everybody, spending money is not always about exactly what makes sense. And trust me, my wife will be expecting me to spend some money that does not all make complete perfect sense. And that's called buying toys. And I will do the same thing. Mr. B's toy is going to be a yacht. and I hope it's a big one because I'd like to rent a room from him at least for a night. I hope it's a big and really nice yacht for his sake and for mine, because I would love to just go on a cruise and not have to worry about anything except sipping on my wine and fine dining on his yacht. I would love to do that. My toy will probably be something different. I know my wife would like a toy that involves some nice car, nice home. Now, a home is different for me. That's an asset that I would love to buy as an investment and as a toy. Now, I talked to Mr. B about this video, and we were talking about this, and I said, well, this is a great idea. We need to do a video about not just some of the toys that's a fun conversation to have anyway. At some point, we need to do a video about what would be the toys, and also what would be some smart investments moving forward after some of these things go off and the digital asset market takes off. So we're gonna get together and do some things like that. But I wanted to show you this. This is where my thought pattern comes from. When I was a young man, one of the wealthiest people in my town, he said this. Now, this is a nice version of what he said because he didn't use the term fornicates. He used a dirty word. Now, he says, my rule is if it flies, floats, or fornicates, rent it. It's cheaper in the long run. And basically, this is a joke quote about that people, basically what they're saying is that when you buy boats and things and boats and planes, or you get married, that it can get really expensive really fast. And so it's kind of a joke, but at the same time, they're kind of illustrating an important point too, that when you buy certain things, they can be a big cash flow drain on you. And so I, obviously being a married man, do not agree with this part, but these two things, I've also known some wealthy people that have bought planes, and people that weren't so wealthy that tried to get rid of them as fast as they could once they owned them because it was burning through their cash. But again, I'm just making the point here that you can look at things through two prisms, and I will too, just like Mr. B will. There are toys and things that you enjoy, and there are benefits that Mr. B has in his location near the ocean that I don't have here in a landlocked place in Georgia. So you can look at things, but it is something worthy of us all having a video on and talking about, because there's all kinds of different angles to things that many of us would appeal to many of us. It'd be a fun video to do. But anyway, go give him a subscribe on this. Okay, Heisenzerp at Heisenzerp sent me this, and I'm going to try to get through. I've just passed my 10 o'clock fasting deadline so that I can actually eat. So I'm doing this video on zero fuel. This came out, I think Bank XRP is saying that this came out yesterday. And this is so it must be a new video from David Schwartz about ILP and the XRP ledger. I'm going to go and listen to it myself. It says that it was uploaded on December 4th. I don't know when it was from. So go give that a watch. Bank XRP, who's a definite follow. Okay, Crypto View at Brando Aguilera. I forgot to cover this yesterday. MoneyGram expands cross-border P2P service with Visa Direct. MoneyGram International, who is an ODL, who is a Ripple, owns a portion of MoneyGram now. So think about that while I'm telling you this. A global provider of money services today announced the expansion of its debit card deposit service internationally, which it launched in collaboration with Visa through Visa's real-time push payments platform, Visa Direct. This service is now available to Spain and the Philippines. And now I wanted to show you, this was from Jonathan D at XRP_YD7. And he sent me the MoneyGram tweet on this. Our partnership with Visa is going international. Customers in the U.S. can now send money direct to Visa debit cards in Spain and Philippines, making MoneyGram the first to enable cross-border transfers from the U.S. using Visa Direct. If you don't think that this is a good place for you to be as an XRP holder, MoneyGram is not just partially owned by Ripple now. MoneyGram is using XRP, ODL, on-demand liquidity, and has plans, as they said on stage at Swell, to increase the corridors. And Brad Garlinghouse has told us that the MoneyGram CEO is pushing him along, saying, we want more corridors to open using XRP and ODL. And now MoneyGram is partnered with Visa Direct. I mean, it is a nice place to be. That's all I can say. Okay, Kava Labs. I wanted to give a shout out to Brad Combs here. He had one of the Kava Labs executives on and did a whole show on this. And now Kava Labs is tweeting this out. Remember, Kava Labs is invested in by Spring, Ripple's, basically their incubator for XRP use cases. With Kava mainnet transactions being turned on, we've seen an incredible amount of interest from staking partners, wallets, and more. Stay tuned over the coming days and weeks. We'll be announcing a number of partnerships to help Kava further our position in DeFi. That's decentralized finance. Keep your eyes on Kava Labs. This is where these guys are working on being able to collateralize your digital asset holdings. Keep your eyes on this. And just pay attention to Shaq here. He knows what's cooking. All right. And this is from Fidelity Digital Assets. I laughed when I read this. Bitcoin is not just a technology, financial instrument, or consumer application. It's an entire monetary system supported by technology, says this guy who is Director of Technology and Research for, who is he working for? I don't even know. He may work for Fidelity, but anyway, when I read this, it reminded me of Bob Ross from Coinfield. This is the guy working on Sologenic as well. The crypto space needs all of these legit altcoins and use cases to grow. There is no pride to be a Bitcoin maxi. It's a failure in long term. If Bitcoin dominance isn't reduced, Bitcoin can't, then he says, Bitcoin can't do what XRP, Ethereum, and even the upcoming Solo project from Sologenic can do. It can't do what XRP, Ethereum, and even the upcoming Solo do. And that's a fact. It's just a fact, folks. Now, even though he knows this, I know it, and you know it if you've been paying attention. Bitcoin cannot, it's an inferior technology to all of this. This does not mean that Bitcoin is not going to be a part of this history book. It's a major part of it. And I think that just like Brad Garlinghouse says, he's bullish on Bitcoin at least in the short to mid-term like I am. I own some Bitcoin. He owns Bitcoin. And we think that this, I'm not speaking for Brad Garlinghouse by any means, but he has said, and I think the same way, that Bitcoin, it's a good thing for Bitcoin to come along with this, at least in the short to mid-term. But I do kind of agree with this over the long term from anything other than a store of value. It's not going to do anything. And I'm shocked when I read, unless they plan on Bitcoin being run through the ILP, I'm shocked that these people think that at Fidelity think it has that kind of a future for anything other than a store of value or as an investment. Michelle Vandenberg sent me this. Bond Crypt, banks are cutting 75,700 jobs worldwide. Unicredit, Italy's largest bank, has become the latest major bank to unveil layoff plans, joining Deutsche Bank, Santander, Commerzbank, HSBC, and more. And this is going to happen more and more, folks. They have created, I'm not saying these banks, but just the governments of the world and the central banks of the world have created this joke of a worldwide economy that's built on absolutely nothing. And I'm going to show you some awesome quotes here in a minute that will help illustrate the absurdity. Well, let's move along here. XRP Bullish Vegas, who's XRP, who's at Funky Bad Chad, and did my first live stream ever with me, and looks like Ethan Beard. He sent me this. OKX launches USDT margin perpetual swap trading. Perpetual swap offers 9 types of trading pairs, including Bitcoin, EOS. I'm not going to go through all of them, but it has XRP listed with a leverage level of 0.01 to 100 times to maximize users' trading strategy. So This is the second announcement like this. Earlier, we did an announcement about some ex-Morgan Stanley execs doing something similar. You can see where these guys are starting to get into this leveraged trading, folks, 100 times. This is where the real money starts to flow into this business. Okay, Michael at VAL5 Links. This is also about Bob Ross, the CEO of CoinField. It's been revealed. Bob Ross, CEO of crypto exchange CoinField, said that the XRP ledger is now standing up to stress tests for the company's new tokenized asset trading platform, Sologenic. So they're building this on the XRP ledger. Now, would Bitcoin stand up to such stress tests? Well, Bitcoin has not stood up to stress tests every single time we've had a bull market. The Bitcoin blockchain does not stand up to the stress test just of heavy buying of Bitcoin. The confirmations on the transactions get longer and longer every time this happens. It's been a nightmare in every single bull run. And it's just a further illustration that Bitcoin is not the technology. Bitcoin was the first through the gate. And I believe in at least the medium term, it will be, or at least the short term, it will be the store of value, but it's not going to be the future technology for really building out blockchain platforms. That is not what Bitcoin is going to be. And anybody that tells you that just didn't pay attention. X-Men XRP at XRP33 sent me this, which I think is fascinating. SBI mulling a company-wide cryptocurrency shareholder payout in XRP. Japanese financial giant SBI is considering issuing XRP tokens as company-wide shareholder rewards, says the company's CEO, Yoshitaka Kitao. In a recent address to shareholders by the company on YouTube, he said previous XRP handout to shareholders of SBI's Morningstar subsidiary in August this year had a proved success. And what they're basically saying is that when they did this right here, SBI chief said that the August XRP payout had driven up subscriptions to the company's Japanese crypto exchange, SBI VC Trade, as Morningstar shareholders wishing to claim their XRP were obliged to open accounts on the platform to claim their tokens. Smart, genius move here. And so this tells you where this is all going. Now, I was talking to my father on the phone this morning, and he reminded me, my father, by the way, who's the official father of the Digital Asset Investor channel. He is also the global financial advisor to the Digital Asset Investor channel. I was speaking to him this morning, and he reminded me of a guy that we both love. It was a guy who was kind of a comedian slash political commentator slash motivational type guy. His name was Will Rogers, and from back in the day, probably when my father was a child. I think it was from the 50s or maybe 40s. But he was he had a lot of funny quotes. He also sang songs. He had all kinds of things. But my father raised me telling me about some of his quotes and some of his stories. Well, he told me I should go and look up a couple of his quotes, so I did. And the first one that I liked, that I saw that applies to what we're in today, is this: invest in inflation. It is the only thing going up. And he's making fun. This was back in the day. He was making fun then of what our governments do, printing money, putting out fiat currencies and printing, and then they just print it into oblivion because they're not doing the responsible thing. And inflation, which I've told you before, when I was a kid, a movie ticket was maybe $2 or something like that. And when my dad was a kid, maybe it was 25 cents. The biggest lie that has ever been sold to this world is that inflation is the natural order of things. It is a lie, and it's always been a lie. It's a comfortable lie for governments because that allows them to print allows them to print fiat into oblivion so that they can try to control everything. And it is a lie. The truth was before Nixon, when we had a gold standard and the money was tied to gold. Once he got rid of the gold standard, it has been a lie ever since. And so they've been doing this. And so Will Rogers is exactly right here. And he has another quote that you need to stamp into your memory. Real estate is the best investment in the world because it is the only thing they're not making anymore. Now, this illustrates a point about digital assets. I said this a long time ago, and anybody who, many of the world's mega millionaires and billionaires and eventually trillionaires will be real estate investors. And this makes an extremely good point. And there's an old saying, buy land, they're not making any more of it. Well, this is part of what's so beautiful about digital assets. If you're in some of the right digital assets that will have actual utility going forward, and the ones that are deflationary, such as XRP, where they're not making any more of them, there's a limited amount and they're not going to make any more of them. If you get in one of those right digital assets, they have that same characteristic of investing in real estate. And for that reason, that's why I was drawn to this in the first place. It was coming out of the financial crisis where it finally dawned on me what a joke with the bailouts and all, what a joke these central banks had created of our world economy. And I initially looked to gold and silver because they couldn't make any more of those. And that's when I discovered digital assets. That's when I realized this was where the transition would happen. And then I found XRP, the greatest digital asset ever created, for all the reasons I've told you on this channel. I'm the digital asset investor. I'm not an investment advisor. This is for entertainment purposes only. Please subscribe and hit the like button and tell your friends and family. Buy XRP because they're not making any more of it, and it's the greatest digital asset ever created. Thank you for listening.